Introduction, Two Fathers, Two Paths. Imagine being a child with two father figures, both intelligent, both hardworking, both deeply influential in your life. Yet one dies broke, while the other builds wealth and independence. This was Robert Kiyosaki's reality. His biological father, the poor dad, was well educated, with a PhD, a respected government job, and a belief in traditional success: study hard, get a safe job, earn a steady paycheck. He represented what society calls security. His second father, the rich dad, wasn't highly educated, but he was financially wise. A businessman and investor, he believed in building assets, taking risks, and making money work for him. He represented what society calls freedom. Robert grew up listening to both. And as he tells us, the clash of those two voices shaped his life. The book is his attempt to pass on what the rich dad taught him, lessons about money, wealth, and independence that schools rarely cover. And right away, he throws us into his first big lesson: the rich don't work for money. Chapter 1, The Rich Don't Work for Money. Let's picture young Robert and his best friend Mike. Both are just kids in Hawaii, hungry to learn how to be rich. They ask Mike's father, the rich dad, for guidance. Instead of lecturing, he gives them a job. The boys are paid 10 cents an hour working in one of his small shops. At first, they are excited. But soon, they realize the pay is tiny and the work dull. Frustration builds. Why would rich dad do this to them? Then comes the lesson. Rich dad explains, most people spend their lives working for money, trapped by fear and desire. Fear of being broke drives people to get jobs, to chase paychecks, to cling to security. Desire, the desire for nicer things, better houses, new cars, keeps them spending what they earn, always running on the treadmill. The cycle repeats: fear pushes them into work, desire makes them spend, and they become slaves to money. But the wealthy? The wealthy break the cycle. They don't work for money. Instead, they make money work for them. They build assets, investments, businesses, systems, that generate income even while they sleep. This is the difference. The poor and middle class trade time for money. The rich trade ideas, assets, and strategies for money. Young Robert and Mike begin to understand. The little shop wasn't about the 10 cents an hour. It was a simulation of life, the grind most people accept without question. And the real lesson was learning to see beyond the paycheck. As Rich Dad puts it, the poor and middle class work for money. The rich have money work for them. This first chapter sets the stage. Money is not just about wages, but about mindset. Until you escape the fear-desire trap, you'll always be working for money instead of mastering it. Chapter 2, Why Teach Financial Literacy? Rich Dad's first great lesson was simple: don't work for money, make money work for you. But that naturally raises a question: how do you actually do that? The answer lies in financial literacy, knowing how money really works. The illusion of wealth. Rich Dad explains that many people who look rich are not. They earn high salaries, buy big houses, drive new cars, but behind the curtain, they're drowning in debt and obligations. Their wealth is just spending power, not freedom. Why? Because they don't understand the difference between assets and liabilities. Assets put money into your pocket. Liabilities take money out of your pocket. It's that simple, yet it's the line most people never cross. A house, for example, feels like an asset, but if it constantly drains you with mortgages, taxes, and maintenance, it's really a liability. A stock portfolio that grows in value? An asset. A rental property that generates monthly income? An asset. A business that earns money without you working every hour? An asset. The poor and middle class focus on income, earning a paycheck. The rich focus on assets, building streams of cash flow. The rat race. Kiyosaki paints the picture clearly. A young professional gets a job, gets a paycheck, takes a loan to buy a car, then a mortgage for a house, credit cards for lifestyle, and suddenly every paycheck is already spent before it arrives. This cycle is called the rat race. And most people, even smart, educated ones, never escape it. They confuse high income with wealth, but their liabilities always grow to match or exceed their earnings. Rich Dad's rule. The wealthy follow a simple principle. Buy assets first, use their income to pay for liabilities. If you want luxuries, let your investments earn them for you, don't use your sweat and salary. The rich get richer not because they're smarter, but because they prioritize assets before anything else. Why schools fail. Here's the sharpest criticism in this chapter. Rich Dad insists that traditional schools don't teach financial literacy. They teach people how to work for money, not how to make it work for them. Students learn to read, write, and calculate, but not to manage money. That's why doctors, lawyers, even executives can earn six figures and still live paycheck to paycheck. Financial literacy isn't optional, it's survival. The core lesson of Chapter 2. So Rich Dad drills this into Robert and Mike. Know the difference between assets and liabilities. Spend your life acquiring assets. Financial intelligence matters more than a high salary. Because ultimately, it's not how much money you make, it's how much you keep, and how hard that money works for you. Microphone emoji, that's Chapter 2, Why Teach Financial Literacy? It shifts the focus from mindset to mechanics. The rich build assets, the poor and middle class accumulate liabilities. Chapter 3, Mind Your Own Business. Rich Dad's next lesson strikes at the very heart of how most of us are raised. Get a good job, climb the ladder, stay loyal to a company, and you'll be secure. But he warns Robert and Mike, if you spend your life minding other people's business, you'll never build your own. The trap of the job. Most people, he explains, spend decades building the business of their employer. They give their time, their energy, their creativity, all for a paycheck. The company grows wealthier. The owner builds assets. Meanwhile, the employees go home with salaries that mostly vanish into expenses. Even highly paid professionals, doctors, lawyers, executives, fall into the same trap. They may technically run their own practice, but often they're chained to working hours. Their business is really just a high-pressure job. If they stop working, the income stops too. Rich Dad's advice. So what does mind your own business really mean? It means this: no matter where you work, always be building your asset column on the side. Don't get lost in titles or promotions. Don't mistake your job for security. Focus on acquiring and growing assets that earn you money whether you work or not. Rich Dad isn't saying quit your job tomorrow. He's saying, while you work, never forget to build your own empire on the side. What assets look like? Kiyosaki gives examples. Real estate that generates rental income. Stocks and bonds that grow and pay dividends. Businesses or side hustles that run without you working full-time. Intellectual property, a book, a product, a system that sells while you sleep. The rich focus relentlessly on this. The poor and middle class? They focus on job titles, salaries, and perks, and wonder why they never escape the paycheck cycle. The mindset shift. Rich Dad stresses this: you can be employed and still be unemployed. Employed by someone else, yes, but unemployed in your own financial life if you're not building something for yourself. The lesson isn't anti-job, it's pro-freedom. A job may feed you today, but assets will feed you for life. The core lesson of Chapter 3. So the takeaway is simple, but powerful. A job is not your business. Your business is the collection of assets you build. The rich get rich because they never confuse the two. As Rich Dad says, financial struggle is often the result of people working all their lives for someone else. Microphone emoji, that's Chapter 3, Mind Your Own Business. It pushes us from financial literacy into financial independence. If you don't build your own assets, you'll always be working for someone else's. Chapter 4, The History of Taxes and the Power of Corporations. When most people think of taxes, they think of duty, fairness, or sacrifice. We've been taught that taxes are the price of civilization. But Rich Dad tells Robert and Mike something shocking. Taxes weren't created to punish the rich, they were sold to the public as a way to punish the rich, but they ended up trapping the poor and middle class. A quick history of taxes. Originally, in places like England and America, there were no income taxes. Governments only taxed in times of war or crisis. But over time, politicians realized that promising to tax the rich was a surefire way to win public support. People cheered, believing the wealthy would finally pay their share. But here's the twist: the rich had the knowledge and resources to protect themselves. They hired lawyers, accountants, and used structures that the average worker knew nothing about. The result? It was the middle class and poor who ended up paying the bulk of taxes, while the rich legally sheltered their wealth. The power of corporations. Here's where Rich Dad opens young Robert's eyes. The secret weapon of the wealthy isn't just money, it's the corporation. To an average employee, income looks like this. You earn, you pay taxes, you spend what's left. But for corporations, it's different. They earn, they spend, on expenses, reinvestments, benefits, then they pay taxes only on what remains. That small shift makes all the difference. For example, an employee buys a car with after-tax dollars. A corporation can buy vehicles, travel, even education for its owners as business expenses, pre-tax. So the rich don't fight against the system, they master it. They use corporations to shelter income, reduce tax burdens, and protect assets. Why financial education matters. Rich Dad doesn't encourage tax evasion. He encourages financial intelligence. The rich know the rules of the game, the poor and middle class don't. That's why the financially uneducated end up shouldering society's tax burden while the wealthy keep their money growing. Kiyosaki frames it bluntly: the school system trains people to be good employees, but never teaches them how money, taxes, or corporations actually work. That ignorance costs people their freedom. The core lesson of Chapter 4. Taxes were meant to punish the rich but fell hardest on workers. Corporations and financial structures give the wealthy protection and leverage. The rich don't just work harder, they work smarter, using the rules to their advantage. As Rich Dad puts it, the rich don't play by the same set of rules. They make the rules work for them. Microphone emoji. That's Chapter 4, the history of taxes and the power of corporations. It's a shift in perspective. Wealth isn't just about effort, it's about knowledge of the system. Chapter 5, the rich invent money. By now, Rich Dad has drilled into Robert and Mike the difference between assets and liabilities, the trap of working for money, and the way corporations protect wealth. But there's another key difference: the poor and middle class wait for chances. The rich create chances. Money isn't scarce. Most people think money is rare and hard to find. Rich Dad disagrees. He insists, opportunities to make money are everywhere, but most people can't see them, because fear and ignorance block their vision. The poor and middle class say, "I can't afford it." The rich ask, "How can I afford it?" That subtle change turns a dead end into a doorway. The role of financial intelligence. Rich Dad teaches that money is created in the mind first. It's not about how much cash you have, but about how creative and educated you are financially. He compares it to building muscle. The more you practice spotting and creating opportunities, the sharper your financial intelligence becomes. Examples: finding undervalued real estate and flipping it for profit. Seeing a trend in business before the crowd notices. Structuring deals that use other people's money to create wealth. To most people, these moves look risky. To the financially literate, they look like opportunities. Fear, cynicism, and laziness. Rich Dad points out 3 traps that kill opportunity. Fear: what if I fail? What if I lose? Cynicism: that'll never work. It's too risky. Laziness: I'm too busy working to think about investing. He argues that these excuses keep people blind to wealth. The rich train themselves to overcome fear, silence the cynic, and make time for building assets. Learning by doing. Kiyosaki shares stories of taking small risks as a young man, buying, selling, investing in small ventures. Sometimes he failed. But each failure sharpened his skill. The lesson: you don't wait until you know everything to start. You start small, learn, adjust, and grow. It's not about gambling. It's about building financial creativity through real-life practice. The core lesson of Chapter 5. The poor and middle class say, "I can't." The rich ask, "How can I?" Wealth comes from financial intelligence, not just hard work. Opportunities are everywhere, but only visible to those prepared to see them. The rich invent money by creating deals, assets, and solutions. As Rich Dad summarizes, it's not the lack of money that holds you back. It's the lack of financial intelligence. Microphone emoji. That's Chapter 5, the rich invent money. This is the creative edge of wealth, the ability to see what others miss, to turn obstacles into opportunities. Chapter 6, work to learn, don't work for money. Most people, Rich Dad explains, choose jobs for security and pay. They ask, "How much will it pay me?" But the wealthy ask a different question: what will this teach me? Skills over paychecks. Rich Dad urges Robert and Mike, never work just for a salary. Use jobs as stepping stones to acquire skills that will eventually make you free. He calls it working to learn. Instead of chasing money, chase the lessons that money can't buy. Key skills he emphasizes: sales and marketing. The ability to persuade, communicate, and sell ideas is priceless. Accounting. Understanding numbers and money flow is the foundation of business. Investing. Knowing how to make money grow and multiply. Law and taxes. Knowledge of legal structures and corporate systems gives protection and leverage. With this toolkit, you can build and grow your own empire. Without it, you'll always be working for someone else's. Robert's personal example. Kiyosaki shares that in his early years, he deliberately took jobs that others might consider beneath him, not for the paycheck, but to build skill. He worked in sales to overcome shyness and to learn communication. He explored different industries to broaden his perspective. Each move was strategic, not about comfort, but about growth. The specialist trap. One of the biggest mistakes of the educated middle class, Rich Dad argues, is specialization. They become excellent in one field, medicine, law, engineering, but blind in all others. This makes them dependent on their jobs. The wealthy, on the other hand, are generalists. They may not be the best at one technical skill, but they understand the whole game: how money flows, how businesses run, how to lead people, how to spot opportunity. This broad base gives them freedom. Fear of looking foolish. Rich Dad also warns that ego is the enemy. Many refuse to step outside their comfort zones because they don't want to look bad or start at the bottom. But the rich embrace being beginners, because every new skill is a seed for future wealth. As he puts it, don't let the fear of failing stop you. Failure is part of the process. The core lesson of Chapter 6. Don't ask how much will I earn? Ask what will I learn? Build a toolkit of financial, communication, and business skills. Avoid the trap of overspecialization. Aim to be a generalist who understands the whole system. Embrace learning, even if it means temporary discomfort or looking foolish. Because ultimately, the rich don't work for money. They work to learn, and the money follows. Microphone emoji, that's Chapter 6, work to learn, don't work for money. It's a mindset shift. See every job as a classroom, not a cage. Chapter 7, overcoming obstacles. Rich Dad explains that the difference between the rich and the poor isn't simply knowledge, it's the ability to overcome the emotional and psychological barriers that hold most people back. He identifies the 5 biggest obstacles. 1. Fear. The number one reason people don't become wealthy is fear of losing money. Most people would rather cling to security than risk failure. But Rich Dad insists, losses are part of the game. The rich aren't fearless, they just learn how to manage fear. They treat failure as tuition, a necessary cost of learning. As he puts it, winners are not afraid of losing. But losers are. Failure is part of the process of success. 2. Cynicism. Even when opportunities appear, most people kill them with doubt. They say, what if it doesn't work? What if the economy crashes? What if? Cynics talk themselves out of action. Instead of investigating, they dismiss. The rich, in contrast, test ideas, do research, and act, even if the timing isn't perfect. 3. Laziness. Laziness doesn't always look like lying on the couch. Sometimes, it hides behind busyness. People say, I'm too busy working, I don't have time to invest, to learn, to think about assets. But this busyness is an excuse. The wealthy carve out time to focus on opportunities, no matter how packed their schedules are. 4. Bad habits. Habits shape destiny. Rich Dad points out that poor financial habits, like spending before saving, keep people trapped. The rich flip the order: pay yourself first. That means investing in assets before paying bills or splurging on luxuries. This forces discipline and builds wealth over time. 5. Arrogance. Finally, arrogance, the belief that you already know enough. Many people reject advice, ignore new information, or cling to outdated beliefs. The rich, however, stay humble and curious, always learning, always adapting. The mindset of the wealthy. Rich Dad stresses, the rich aren't geniuses immune to fear, doubt, or laziness. They simply recognize these obstacles for what they are, mental traps, and push through them. That's why financial education isn't enough on its own. You must also build the courage, discipline, and humility to act on what you know. The core lesson of Chapter 7. Everyone faces fear, doubt, laziness, bad habits, and arrogance. The poor surrender to these obstacles. The rich acknowledge them, and keep moving anyway. As Rich Dad says, the primary difference between a rich person and a poor person is how they manage fear. Microphone emoji, that's Chapter 7, overcoming obstacles. It's not just about knowing the rules of money, it's about mastering yourself. Chapter 8, getting started. By now, Rich Dad has explained the principles of wealth. Don't work for money, build assets, understand the system, learn skills, and overcome your inner obstacles. But Robert asks the question every student eventually asks, all right, but how do I start? And Rich Dad responds with practical steps, not theory, not abstract concepts, but concrete habits to launch anyone on the path to financial freedom. Step 1, find a reason bigger than reality. Rich Dad begins with motivation. He explains, money alone isn't enough to keep you going. If all you want is more money, you'll quit when fear or failure strike. You need a reason, a why, larger than your obstacles. For Robert, it was freedom, the desire not to be trapped by jobs or bosses, the dream of choosing his own path. For others, it could be family security, making a difference, or escaping debt. Without a strong reason, he says, you'll always fall back into comfort and excuses. Step 2, make daily choices. Wealth isn't built in leaps, It's built in consistent small decisions. Every day you face a choice. Spend or save. Buy liabilities or invest in assets. Waste time or learn something new. Rich Dad calls this the habit of choosing assets over distractions. Every decision either moves you closer to freedom or deeper into the rat race. Step 3. Choose your friends carefully. This advice surprises Robert. Rich Dad warns that your financial mindset is contagious. If you surround yourself with complainers, doubters, and spenders, their habits will rub off on you. The rich surround themselves with people who think big, talk about opportunities, and share knowledge. He says, don't listen to poor or frightened people. If you want to fly, hang out with eagles, not chickens. Step 4. Master one formula, then learn another. Rich Dad explains that most people learn one formula, work for money, and never update it. They stick with what they know, even when it stops working. The rich are constant learners. They master one approach, then expand into another: investing, real estate, entrepreneurship, financial structures. Like martial artists, they add techniques over time, making themselves more flexible and resilient. Step 5. Pay yourself first. This is one of Rich Dad's golden rules. When most people earn money, they pay bills first. But he insists, put money into savings and investments before anything else. Force yourself to pay yourself first, even if it creates pressure. Why? Because that pressure sparks creativity. You'll find ways to pay the bills, maybe by cutting expenses, finding extra work, or spotting small opportunities. Over time, this habit builds discipline and grows assets. Step 6. Pay your brokers well. Many people resent paying fees to accountants, lawyers, or brokers. The rich see it differently. They understand that a skilled advisor who saves you taxes, finds you deals, or protects your assets is worth every penny. In Rich Dad's words, the more money they make me, the more I pay them. He sees advisors as investments, not expenses. Step 7. Be an Indian giver. This old phrase refers to getting back more than you give. Rich Dad uses it to describe deals. Always look for opportunities where your initial investment is returned quickly, leaving you with assets that generate ongoing returns. For example, buying a property, pulling out your investment through refinancing, and still keeping the asset. The rich design deals where risk shrinks and reward grows. Step 8. Use assets to buy luxuries. Poor people buy luxuries with their salaries. Rich Dad says, wait. Let your assets earn your luxuries. If you want a car, build an investment that pays for the car. That way, the liability is covered by income, not by your sweat. Step 9. Choose heroes. Rich Dad encourages Robert to study and model financial heroes, people like Warren Buffett or other investors of the day. Heroes compress learning. By studying their habits, strategies, and mindset, you can shortcut decades of trial and error. Step 10. Teach and you shall receive. Finally, Rich Dad shares a paradox. If you want to master money, share what you know. Teaching others sharpens your understanding and attracts knowledge and opportunities back to you. The more you give, the more you grow. The core lesson of Chapter 8. Starting isn't about waiting for the perfect moment. It's about finding your why, building daily habits, surrounding yourself with the right influences, paying yourself first, letting assets buy luxuries, and above all, learning and teaching constantly. As Rich Dad says, the path to wealth is built one decision at a time. Start now, no matter how small. Microphone emoji. That's Chapter 8, Getting Started. It's a roadmap, transforming theory into practice, step by step. Chapter 9, Still want more? Here are some to-dos. By now, Rich Dad has explained the philosophy, the mindset, and the habits of the wealthy. But he knows many people still ask, what exactly should I do next? So in this chapter, he leaves a practical checklist, simple actions anyone can take to keep moving forward. 1. Stop what you're doing. The first step is awareness. If what you're doing hasn't brought you wealth or freedom, stop and reflect. Don't just run faster in the same rat race. 2. Look for new ideas. Keep your mind open. Read, listen, attend seminars, study successful people. Money flows to those who are constantly learning and innovating. 3. Find someone who has done it. Mentorship is powerful. Learn from those who've built businesses, invested successfully, or achieved the freedom you seek. Model their path. 4. Take classes, buy courses, learn daily. Education doesn't stop at school. Financial literacy, investing, negotiation, and leadership are lifelong subjects. 5. Make lots of offers. Rich Dad insists, don't just think about opportunities, act on them. Even if you're not sure, make the offer, start the conversation. The more shots you take, the more chances you create. 6. Think big. Don't let small thinking limit you. Dream bigger than your current job or paycheck. Visualize assets, businesses, and opportunities on a scale that challenges you. 7. Learn to manage risk. The poor avoid risk. The rich manage it. Study deals, practice small investments, and build the muscle of smart decision making. 8. Take action now. This is the most important. Don't wait for perfect timing. The best way to learn is by doing. Start small, start imperfect, but start today. Microphone emoji, Chapter 10, Conclusion, the beginning of your journey. Kiyosaki closes the book by returning to his childhood, 2 fathers, 2 worldviews. The poor dad taught security, hard work, and reliance on education and jobs. The rich dad taught independence, financial intelligence, and the courage to let money work for you. The world is full of people who want more money, but few are willing to change how they think about it. Rich dad's lessons aren't just about wealth, they're about freedom. The rich aren't rich because of luck or talent. They're rich because they choose to think differently, to learn constantly, and to act where others hesitate. Kiyosaki urges the reader not to let fear, doubt, or excuses delay them. Every day you wait, you fall deeper into the rat race. Every day you choose to start, you step closer to freedom. The journey doesn't end with this book, it begins with it. Microphone emoji, the core message of chapters 9 and 10. Surround yourself with mentors and ideas. Above all, start building assets now, however small. As Rich Dad says, the poor and middle class work for money. The rich have money work for them. Microphone emoji, that's the end of Rich Dad Poor Dad. From mindset to mechanics, from overcoming fear to taking action, the book is a guide not just to money, but to independence.